I'm very happy to have Ann join us. We've had this conversation now over the last two or three meetings about, trying to really help with the business case or the frame the return on investment, if you will, for resilience in general. That's very central to the mission of the task force. I think this gives us a much better opportunity to talk about how the work we're doing and others are doing to support resilience and how we do a better job of maybe working with different sectors of the economy to explore how we can implement change and try to reduce some of the losses from disasters related to natural hazards. So this all kind of plays into the planning of the summer workshop, and Anne was very gracious and willing to come and speak with us today. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Anne, and we'll hold some questions till the end. All right. Thank you.
Sure, sounds good. And Megan, thank you so much for having the slides and sharing the screen. Because I am traveling today and I had no idea what kind of Wi-Fi I was going to have. So thank you so much for that. So hello, everybody. I do see a couple of familiar names on the list of participants. So for some of you, you already know who IBHS is and what we do. But I also saw plenty of names on the list of people I haven't gotten a chance to meet. So this is for you because this is a real quick IBHS in a nutshell. So IBHS stands for the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. We are a not-for-profit. The insurers contribute to the research that we do. They keep the lights on and buy all the lumber and shingles and stuff like that that we test. Um, our sister organization, if you will, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, has has been doing research for a little bit longer than we have, but you can think of it as the same idea. The insurers have funded the work because they are looking for ways to cost affordably make the built environment more resilient so that that can be identified, it could be put into code, it can be used as consumer guidance. Nearly everything that we do is public, but that's the why for what we do. So if you go ahead and go to the next one. Um, this is our research facility that is in South Carolina and our why statement. Mother Nature's out there doing her thing, and she's been busy. So for example, the last 2 years, 2023 and 2024, those 2 years were twice as much damage from severe convective storms as the 20-year average. So our why has never been more important. And when I talk about damage and loss and things, I'm talking about insured losses. So 23 and 24, huge. And I go ahead and describe severe convective storm. I didn't mention hurricanes and wildfires because you're already seeing that in the news. Um, so it's all over the place. If you'll go ahead to the next one for me, please, Megan. So some of our iconic work and some of what we've done is we're looking at four different perils. Wind is clear. That's wind is in every single insurance policy. Now it gets a little, when a hurricane comes across, then it starts to be like, well, did it flood or was it wind? That we see questions like that getting asked. But the impact of wind, both along the coast and throughout the middle of the United States, is something that insurers care very deeply about. And based on decades of observation as well as our own research in the laboratory, we have come up with a voluntary designation program called the Fortify program, which in many places is beyond building code. In the state of Florida, it's real stinking close. And so the Fortify program, as demonstrated in this picture, is how we can make buildings cost effectively stand up to the winds that Mother Nature is throwing at it. And that's a picture from inside our facility, one of the grand opening events inside the facility. Thank you, Megan. Go ahead to the next one. One of the ways that we're looking at wind recently And when I say recently, over the past 5 years or so, one of the things that is noticed over and over again as losses in wind events are asphalt shingles, which are the predominant roofing cover for most of America. So we have an aging farm at our facility and as well as 6 other places, and we're getting another one this year to look at how do products that test well when they are brand new products, how does that performance decline or degrade or change as the material ages? So that's one of the things that we're taking a look at. On the left is a picture of our aging farm. On the right are some of the things that we see happening through normal wear and tear. So fish mouthing, exposed fastener, unsealing of asphalt shingles, blistering that occurs. These are things that happen that then make those products more susceptible to wind damage. Go ahead to the next one for me. So a recent study we were looking at in the middle of the country for wind, the 2020 Midwest ratio, many of you are probably aware of it. Go ahead. Here's just a case of why the aging is so important. Within Cedar Rapids, that was impacted by that 2020 derecho, when we went and did a deep dive into how did the asphalt shingle roofs perform. And these are roofs that, when you talk with your roofer about getting a roof, you typically, oh, is it a 30-year shingle, a 40-year shingle? There are labels placed on the shingles that are about warranties or about expectations. But when we have events and we have unsealing occurring as a natural weathering phenomenon for asphalt shingles, if the roof was 10 years or older, it had a 1 in 4 chance of having damage from the wind. These are pieces and parts that you can imagine insurers care very deeply about because they're trying to figure out how many of the roofs in a given area might be impacted at what different wind level. So this is the type of work that we can do. Go ahead, Megan. Thank you. Looking at a similar piece for Hurricane Ian, again, how old were they? When we take all asphalt shingles for the communities that were impacted by Hurricane Ian, the damage rate was approximately half when you lump all of them in. And then if you then differentiate by age, you get a slightly different picture. These are the types of things that insurers are very interested in. Though asphalt shingles are the most cost effective in terms of initial purchase price. So when the insurers are looking at, well, what kind of incentives, what kind of motivation, what kind of things should they do? They need to look at where is the weather and how often does it occur? What is the expected performance of different types of materials? And then how much do those materials cost? If they try to look at one in a vacuum, that's not a holistic picture. And so if you're only looking at performance and you think, oh, well, this one's much better, but it costs 3 times as more, you have to roll that into your thinking. And thank you, Megan. Go ahead to the next one. Part of what we have done with research in our laboratory, again, looking for cost-effective ways to change outcomes. So this is a building that we subjected to a lot of wind and rain testing. The shingles are the same on the entire building, but you can see the sheathing panels are outlined on the right-hand side. So what the roofer has done there is apply this tape to the sheathing to prevent water from coming down through the different pieces of sheathing in the event the asphalt shingles are lost. So it really limits the amount of water that then goes in to the building if the asphalt shingles are lost. Next one will show the inside. The difference between the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Frankly, my parents' roof looked like that building after the 2004 hurricane season. And the only reason the inside of their house didn't look like the left-hand picture was because I happened to be there because I had evacuated to their location and I busted a bunch of holes in the ceiling to prevent it from collapsing onto my head. but the difference can be dramatic. You still have to replace the roof, but you don't also have to replace the kitchen cabinets, the carpet, the couch, it is a claim multiplier. So if you could go to the next one for me. This is the three-step piece that we have that we describe why the fortified roof is a great piece and how we communicate it to national roofing contractors, as well as shingle and other roofing manufacturers. This is what we want people to do. Keep the roof on, keep the water out, and lock down the edge for the best chance. This can make a real difference, not just for the insurers who are paying the claim, but also for the homeowners who are paying the deductible and who are also then out of the house. The state of Florida has adopted the steel roof deck into their code. So now when you are roofing in Florida, you are doing these things. And we'd like to see that progress to other areas as well. Go ahead for me, Megan, to the next one. And I think you have to click on this one to play the video. Oh, if you go back.
I think it's because it's a PDF. We had to do a PDF due to
Oh,
size.
I was wondering why the animations weren't playing. Okay,
Sorry
so
about
no,
that.
that's quite all right. That's quite all right. So when you get a chance to, for anybody who wants to go dabble around and see some fun videos, IBHS has a YouTube channel and you can find these things on it. When this video plays, what happens is the wind comes in, the garage door is impacted, and now you have a big open mouth of your structure. Um, the building was designed as an enclosed structure. Once that garage door fails, and it's the biggest opening on most people's homes, you have changed the picture. What happens in this one is that the sidewall starts flapping around like a fish out of water and eventually detaches and goes away. We've also seen that just from an open door, an open window, we've seen roofs lift off, we've seen lots of other things. So wind, shingles, fortified keeping the water out, fortified also to look at garage doors and openings so that homes are not unduly vulnerable to the impacts of one thing failing like a garage door. We see this over and over again also on the edges of the tornadoes. A broken garage door can make you think it was an EF3 when in reality it wasn't. The garage door failed and now you've got bigger structural issues. So this is again an example of the work that we're doing in the area of wind and wind damage. Go ahead to the next one, please, Megan. To summarize the pieces of Fortified, what should homeowners, insurers, contractors know about Fortified? Fortified roof is all about keeping the roof on and the water out. Fortified silver is in between. There's some damage amplifiers like the garage door that I just described. But most homes are either getting fortified roof or they're going all the way to fortified gold, which is keeping the roof on and the water out, looking at the damage amplifiers, and also making sure that we have strong attachment, roof to walls, walls to each other, walls all the way to foundation. In the state of Florida, where you have strong building codes, you're going to see fortified gold type of construction easily. Another state, Alabama, much of Alabama doesn't have a building code. There are cities that have building codes, and I say lower, the southernmost counties right there on the Gulf have strong building codes because they have adopted the fortified pieces into their code. But you'll get a mishmash of different types of construction depending upon where you are in the state of Alabama. So insurers like to go ahead and see that fortified designation, then they know. They don't have to worry about, oh, was this in the county? Was it in the city limits? Was it? They just know, which is why they have continually year after year um, put the contributions in to IBHS for us to run the Fortified program. So go ahead with the next one for me, Megan. Thank you. Um, Fortified is available for home, commercial, as well as multifamily. Its most popular one is home, but there are other pieces available as well. Next one, please. Here's a great example that I love to show to demonstrate that it's not that terribly expensive. So this is a fortified home that survived Hurricane Michael in 2018. You can see what happened to the rest. And this is a Habitat for Humanity home. So it clearly demonstrates you can achieve fortified at different price points. I saw a question come in the chat about do insurance companies ask about fortified? There are incentives publicly described for different insurance companies um, based on fortified. And you can go to fortifiedhome.org and look for incentives or fortifiedhome.org/incentives, and you can find that information. Go ahead to the next one, please, Megan. Taking numbers and putting the so what behind this. Many of you on this call are probably surprised after me showing you the pictures that these numbers on this slide are not larger. So when Hurricane Sally came across Alabama, there was a 7% reduction in claims rate. We still have things to repair. Asphalt shingles still come off. But there was a 13% reduction in the claim severity. So you still have to pay for a roof if something happens, but you're not getting water inside the building. Insurers look at these numbers and celebrate because they're not looking for a 90% change or a 95% reduction. They're looking for something that is directional and moving the needle. And so insurers are absolutely celebrating this level of reduction in claims rate and in severity of the claim. Go ahead to the next one, please. Moving from wind into hail, and click one more for me. Thank you. So if we're looking at severe convective storm, even though I talked already about the Midwest derecho, hail drives the bulk of what insurers care about for severe convective storm. We see the tornadoes and stuff on the news, but hail is out there every single day, causing people to replace roofs and do stuff with with their cars and everything else. So hail is absolutely driving the trend in the insurance industry's mind. And that's what they are asking us to study. Go ahead to the next. And if we look only at the hail piece of the pie, roofs, absolutely all the time. So we've been doing a lot of studies recently about hail impacts and hail impacts specifically to asphalt shingles. If you could go ahead for me. We took a look at the existing test standards, which UL 2218 is a steel ball. We've gone out and done field measurements so that we could recreate laboratory hail that is realistic. And we've established a new testing protocol that is far different from the steel ball. Go ahead. Based on that, and this is an animation that plays, so unfortunately, it looks weird in a PDF, but if you go to the IBHS website, we list the shingles. So the one that is currently on this PDF is the first time that we released the list of asphalt shingles. The reason there's a red box floating out on the side there is that the one that scored poorly was actually removed from the marketplace by the manufacturer. We have repeated that test every 2 years, and we're in the middle of greatly expanding the number of shingles that will be on the list when we publish it late this fall. We've had actually 3 asphalt shingles that were listed as UL 2218 compliant that have been taken off of the list because they are no longer manufactured. And we've had manufacturers come up with new and innovative products. Oh, thanks, Megan. New and innovative products that are, new. OC Flex, which is up there near the top. Yeah, so OC Flex, which is at the top in our current list, that was a brand new product that was developed because of the new IBHS test protocol. So insurers love to see this kind of thing occurring. We are transparent in bringing the information to the asphalt shingle manufacturers so that they can design products that are going to withstand what Mother Nature is out there doing. Thanks so much for grabbing that, Megan. You're on the fly. All right. If you'll go ahead and we'll switch now to wildfire. As you can imagine, based on things going on in the news, even before this current calendar year, IBHS has been doing a lot of stuff in wildfire. And this image here is from a test that we did. Gosh, it was either back in 2011 or 2013. Sometimes they all run together. But we have been active in the wildfire space for a very long time and have just recently, within the past 3 years, also come up with a designation program similar in concept to the Fortified program and entirely wildfire specific. So go ahead. Thanks, Megan, to the next one. And just to be very clear, wildfire happens all the time and is part of a natural ecosystem. But fires from the wildland, when they get into our neighborhoods, cause conflagration. And the biggest difficulty that we see when we see large numbers of structures burned, they are typically in the suburban area. And so we looked first and foremost at single family homes and how we can put together a designation program that will change the risk pattern for those homes. So go ahead. Thanks, Megan, for the next one. When we see conflagration, three things happen. It says humans, but more specifically, densely populated areas of humans. When you're out in the ranch, okay, you might lose one or two, but when we have conflagration, we are talking about densely spaced suburbs like Marshall Fire, Lahaina, the LA County fires. There's always a component of drought. So like LA County had a very short, maybe you call it a flash drought. I'm not as good as knowing when that term is appropriate and when it's not. Was it prolonged? Was it a flash drought? Don't know. But when the LA County fire occurred, they were in a state of drought. The same thing in Lahaina, Marshall. We see it each time that we have a large conflagration, and it's combined with some sort of high wind event. Now, CAL FIRE puts out, suppresses very quickly 98% or so of the fires that get started in the wild land. By any stretch of imagination, that's a really good solid A. But it's this 2% that happens when these other three things are there that causes such a problem. Go ahead for me to the next one. As I mentioned, the LA fires just recently, you can see for yourself the density in that picture. And then once the winds get so high, air assault is grounded. Now you're off to the races. Go ahead to the next one. This is an example from our facility of how we've been looking at the impacts of wind-driven fire and how we can play a role in taking the science into a designation program. As a wind person, I love this slide because the embers show the eddies that occur when the wind interacts with buildings that are of the typical size that you see in the suburbs. And that roll there tends to be about 5 feet. That's where the embers deposit and light. Fascinatingly, my fire scientist friends like the 5 feet because that's the distance at which, if you have something big that's burning, like a standard burner, that the temperature on the wall stops escalating. So if you have it at 5 feet away, that's where the embers roll, but also a burner at 5 feet, you have an opportunity for the wall to receive some cooling and not just to keep increasing in heat. So for those two reasons, we have come up with that 0 to 5 foot defensible space zone. Go ahead to the next slide. The impact of wind on the flames that you get from buildings that are burning near you is very clearly demonstrated by this slide. And this is the type of testing that we can do at our facility. Go ahead to the next one. If you're interested in reading more about the pieces that we have already done, we've taken the wildfire pieces, both ember driven and the things that we have seen in our field investigations, and we have compacted them into these documents. The top one there, Wildland Fire, Embers and Flames, um, is a lengthy document citing literature review to the best of our ability all the way around the globe. So it's a great source of information. The Suburban Wildfire Adaptation Roadmaps is a shorter document. That's the good, bad, and the ugly, if you will, of what we know to be true about decks and roof coverings and different things. And then external sprinklers is also there on the list. We get asked all the time about, well, if putting a fire out means putting the wet stuff on the hot stuff, shouldn't we have exterior sprinklers do that? We have sprinklers for interior fires. There's some really good challenging questions that are outlined in the external sprinklers white paper that describe how we are not currently situated to be able to deploy external sprinklers in mass in a suburban area and have that be an effective tool. There would have to be some infrastructure changes and some very interesting things occur in order to make that an effective strategy. So if you're interested in that type of thing, it's in that document there. Go ahead to the next one for me. All of that science condensed into a voluntary program called Wildfire Prepared Home. Base designation, like fortified, there's 3 levels. There's roof, there's the middle one, and then there's gold, which is everything. Wildfire prepared, there are 2 levels. The first level significantly reduces the likelihood that the home will be ignited by embers. And then the plus designation, building on top of each other, adds to that additional mitigation against radiant heat and flame contact. And again, this is an individual home designation. We know that wildfire impacts whole communities, and so that one home by itself has reduced its own risk, but is still highly impacted by the rest of the community. So go ahead to the next one for me, please. Because of that, we've been doing some detailed studies together with our friends at NIST and CAL FIRE and FSRI to look at not just the individual, but what are the impacts in building to building, starting with small sheds all the way through large ADUs as an accessory dwelling unit. These are basically 1-bedroom homes, and we light them on fire. We fully outfit them with kitchen utensils, appliances, clothes, to make sure that the heat signature is correct, and we burn them to the ground. Go ahead to the next one. With that information, we have created not only Wildfire Prepared, but I didn't put it in this slide deck because the announcement is coming out at the end of this month. You will see us work towards Wildfire Prepared Neighborhood. So we study the 4 perils, wind and wind-driven rain, which we encompass our learnings into the Fortified program, and we take that information to codes. For hail, we're looking right now at asphalt shingles only. We will also look at other products, but asphalt shingles have the largest market share by far, and we've developed a system of showing relative performance for different asphalt shingles. And in the area of wildfire, we do a lot of experimental testing. We have put forward Wildfire Prepared Home for individual homes, which is available right now in California and Oregon. It will be made available into more areas soon. And you'll see us at the end of this month roll out a new provisional wildfire prepared neighborhood. We've been working together with NFPA. Usually I get a question at this point in the chat that says, how's this different from Firewise? Wildfire prepared neighborhood will be something to reach, and Firewise communities, because of their great awareness, education, and networking opportunities, will be some of the first communities that can then go all the way to meeting wildfire prepared neighborhood. We've been working hand in hand with Michelle Steinberg and her team at NFPA on that designation. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions about who IBHS is, what we do, or how we can communicate with you in the future.
All right, thank you, Ann. So questions for Ann? All right, I guess I seems like I always have to start.
Go for
Um,
it.
oh, Norma Jean, you go first.
Well, thank you. That was really interesting. I live in New Orleans, so I'm aware of one of the two of the hazards, but wildfire, thank goodness, is not one of them. Um, but my question is, oh my goodness, it just left my mind. Oh, back to one of the you had shown reduction in damage due to fortified roofs in Alabama after Hurricane Sally, and you said that the 17% reduction in claims and I think 15% reduction in amount was success. Is that associated with the fact that you just don't have every single roof in and home in Alabama as being fortified, so that as you see more and more people in Alabama choose to do that once they replace their roofs, they might not be able to go to gold, but once they replace their roofs, if they go with a fortified roof, you'll do you anticipate seeing an even bigger percentage reduction?
It's tough to say because if I take a group of fortified homes on the one side and non-fortified homes on the other, if a tree falls in the middle of the home, it's still going to be gigantic damage, right? Um, when the shingles come off, you're still going to have to replace the roof. And so, this group of homes still had claims. It only reduced the amount by which people are making claims by 7%. And so trees are still going to fall, shingles are still going to come off. But the fact that the non-fortified homes, let's say the non-fortified homes cost $1,000, the fortified homes would be 870. And so by reducing the cost, we can, if you populate that over a large area, you are reducing those costs, which is why insurers celebrate numbers like this, even though they might feel small to some of us.
Excellent, thank you. Yvette.
So, following up on some of that thought, I guess this was really great, by the way. Thank you. But I am curious as to do you how do you see this information affecting I'm going to say the business case, not just for the insurers, but for the homeowners. So if they're spending more to put that in, are they seeing that come back to them in any, I mean, obviously, I would think, I don't know how you quantify inconvenience, right? of,
Mm.
of, of the damages, of living with the damages and living with the repairs. But have you thought about it in that way? Do you have information on that way on like what's the business case to the homeowner of investing in the fortified?
Yes. So, it varies state by state and person by person, right? If you are building in Florida, you're pretty much there. If you are building in the two southernmost counties in Alabama, you're there. But if you're building in Texas, who knows? So most of the homeowners we talk to are happy to give testimony about why they think it's so great. And having seen my husband, or excuse me, having seen my family live in a FEMA trailer for a year, I can tell you that it's hard to put a price tag on that. The My parents are still married, but it's it's tough to quantify. You're absolutely right. It's tough to quantify. And so that's why I recommend to people go to the fortifiedhome.org, go to the incentives place, look and see what people are describing. Um, how long are you in the home? How long do you stay with that insurer? There are very real incentives, and the roofers like it too, because it's through taking the pictures of the fortified roof and submitting them, there's clear quality assurance. Roofers feel like they can then have a conversation with the insurance agents about, hey, this one's a fortified roof. This is great. It's, yeah, I wish I had some more hard numbers for you. Um, Insurance companies like it, homeowners like it, roofers like it. We haven't heard, which is good because I think we would have heard people griping about, well, I did this, I put the extra money in and I got nothing. That I am not seeing. Now, the one place where I'm hearing a lot of why should I is in California, for example. So why should I do all the things to become wildfire prepared? What's in it for me? What am I going to get? For lots of reasons that I am not the expert on which to provide detailed information about the insurance market in the state of California. There are lots of reasons why it's not just wildfires, all sorts of regulatory things and pricing and inflation and stuff like that. So we get questions about, well, why should I? In many cases, there's a question about availability that people are working on. Well, I found that once I went ahead and did Wildfire Prepared Home, then I had the ability to have conversations about what was available to me or what was not available to me. Those are conversations we are hearing and we are blissfully not a part of because we bring the science and the information, and then it goes out into the wild.
First of all, I want to apologize. There seems to be something wrong with my computer and on my video. So even though I keep turning it on to video, it's not doesn't seem to be showing me. So sorry about that. But secondly, thank you for that. Because I do think I'm really just looking for how we can help communities make that case for everyone. And you know that this is great information and very helpful. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Chris Clavin.
And thanks for the presentation. And a reminder in some cases of your programs. Could you my question's about the new program, the Wildfire Prepared. Sorry, did you say neighborhood or
I did.
community?
I said
Okay.
neighborhood.
Neighborhood. Yeah. Could you just say more about the types of actions that we're hoping to see coming from that? Also, could you elaborate on what's the sorry, agency having jurisdiction is probably not the right term. Like, is it an HOA? Who's the
For the
unit that
neighborhood?
actually would adopt or intend like or get something certified by adopting that? And are they the insured? Are they the actual who holds the insurance in that case as well
Right.
too? Sorry, I'm probably poking holes. Like I'm really curious about it because this is one of the challenges in a lot of cases where it's not the entire municipality, but it's a smaller subdivision. And so I'm curious, smaller subunit, curious how you're grappling with that, who you're targeting.
Yes. So, easiest, of course, for new development, than for existing. And the body that will be able to keep alive and enforce, particularly the landscaping pieces, is going to be an HOA. Like, so in terms of first steps, what you'll see you'll see in media things later this month, there will be a neighborhood and it will have an HOA, and there will be they call them what? CC&Rs, the covenants, codes and restrictions, the ordinances for that HOA. The individual homes, basically you have a neighborhood, picture in your mind for just a minute, a dartboard, but there's maybe only two colors on the dartboard instead of a whole bunch of stripes, there's only two zones. Zone around the outside has to be able to withstand whatever flame would be approaching. If it's grasslands, that's different than if it's forest, right? But, picture a perimeter. That's likely going to have to be a wildfire prepared home plus on the perimeter. Now picture the inside. That's probably going to have to be wildfire prepared home base, because of whatever ember threats are coming in and however big the neighborhood is. So we take a look at that. We draw the dartboard for the neighborhood and say, you got to achieve this. And then within the neighborhood, how closely spaced and how connected. And so meeting those criteria, then you can get a wildfire prepared neighborhood. And that's something that the HOA, the entity, can hold as a designation, which will have impacts for the individual insured homes within the neighborhood. And again, we're going to have to go through this prototyping and beta testing with this because it's a whole new thing. We're going to do that for a while before we just open it up publicly and say anybody can apply.
Excellent. All right. Thanks. And I got just a couple quick questions. So everything that you're describing here is above building code. So these are not like jurisdictions adopting building codes. These are more voluntary approaches, or is it a mix? I guess it depends on the state.
That's the it depends clause, right? So we have taken the science as we know it best today, and we've packaged it into voluntary designation programs. Fortified, wildfire prepared. Municipalities, jurisdictions, states, they can take up those pieces or not. So the city of Paradise, or the town of Paradise, California, adopted into its town ordinances wildfire prepared home. So anybody building new, rebuilding there in Paradise is going to have to build that way based on the town ordinance. State of California already has the Chapter 7A, and they have just recently updated that. We've been part of that process as well. But insurance agents and others may be asking, well, I want to see your wildfire prepared home designation so that I can then make sure that that's appropriate, for our discussions about your insurance. It's a mix of who's doing what and where is it. Part of which is because of the way we do codes here in the US.
Right, because I think kind of what's bubbling along in a lot of these discussions is, we're interested in promoting wider adoption of hazard-based building codes, especially when they're based on ASCE standards. But there's a certain resistance, let's say, to directing that from a jurisdiction as opposed to a voluntary program where there's clearly some financial incentive to encourage people to adopt it. And I think both of those models exist, and I'm just curious about how effective they are, because if people are reluctant to adopt more rigorous building codes, then we have to look at this a little bit differently. And that's why I thought some of the work you were doing was particularly interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of the work that we do is intentionally focused on housing. And
Right.
so we are looking at a lot of the buildings that might just be deemed to comply as opposed to ASCE 7. So there's that aspect to it as well.
And then my last question, and I don't necessarily expect you to have an answer, but maybe we can explore it a little bit, is I'm very interested in, we put up loss, we talk about losses all the time, right? And but like what percentage of them are residential homes? What percentage of them are publicly owned infrastructure? Are you aware of anybody that's tracking it quite along those lines so that we can kind of get a sense of who's the affected party?
Sure. So let's see. So Moody's RMS is a cat modeler. And they do a lot of stuff with, like, the slide that I showed that said 70% is hail. That's Moody's RMS. The reinsurers, so Swiss Re, Munich Re, Renaissance Re, the reinsurers typically will produce something at the end of a calendar year about global impacts and global losses. I'm trying to think of whether they subdivide. They will usually describe insured losses and non-insured losses. They don't typically subdivide between residential and commercial, but they could. I seem to recall, and I'm having trouble placing it. The number of residential structures within the US, for example, far outnumbers the number of commercial structures. However, when the commercial structures are hit, they're more expensive. So I don't know how that's I don't know how that would shake out, but those are some of the entities who might be able to support the question with data.
Okay, excellent.